Hi everybody, it's Melanie from Art Off Center, and we're going to make another one of the templates from the Clay Club kit. Everyone should have already gotten emailed the small low tray. And what I'm going to do today is make a small planner out of that one. I've got a little extra clay on the side over here, so I'm going to make a tray for the bottom of that for the runoff for the water or the planner. Now what I've got here are a few tools, just the basics. I've got water, a sponge, a wood rib, a needle tool, just a plain old paintbrush. I also have my favorite, the serrated rib. You can get these from any clay supplier. And we've got some texture tools. So someone asked the other day about texturizing and using handmade things. Yeah, you can actually use a lot of things from your house to make handmade texture tools. This is a wood block with a pattern that's just been traced on the top and then traced with hot glue. Hard to see. This one's just like twine wrapped around a piece of wood so you can get a wood texture. Just happened to get a little kit of some that were little tiny wood stamp floral patterns. These are great for little planners. I also have a couple pieces of MDF right here. We're going to use this to square up some corners. You can use just a couple of wood blocks. If you have some scrap wood in your garage, those are great. So I'm smoothing one side of this. So I'm going to put texture on one side. The other side is going to be the inside of the planner, so it doesn't really matter. I'm going to rough in where the template's going to go on this particular slab. So I'm just going to press this down on the slab so I can see the edges. So I've lifted the paper template up off the slab of clay. The clay slab is about a 1/4 inch thick. That's about all you need for a planner. And now I can start to pattern the surface with some stamps. Okay, so I've patterned one side of the little low tray template here. I'm going to place my paper template back on the clay slab. I'm going to take my pottery knife, and for those of you at home that are using tools at home, you can use like an old butter knife. So I'm going to cut in, and I'll do a 90-degree angle on the cuts. I'm going to remove my paper template. I'm going to slightly bevel the edges here so that when I fold this up to try to square this, it makes it a little bit easier to get those corners to square. So I'm going to bevel in one direction. I won't change the angle of my knife. I'm going to bevel under that corner for the next direction. Take this little small L-shaped piece of clay out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to bring this up and bend the sides in. I'm going to do this pretty quickly because the clay is going to stress on those corners, so you need to attach those pretty quickly. And then I'm going to square them up with a couple pieces of MDF that I have handy here in the studio. So again, you want to score all the edges, and you're going to slip those. And for those of you at home, you should have some slip in a container. Using my serrated rib, just hold this in my arm, and I'm going to serrate and use a little water. And it's the same thing as using like your needle tool and then applying slip right there. I'm just generating slip with a little bit of water with the serrated rib. I'm trying not to let the slab of clay bend, so I'm supporting it on my arm. Yes, you'll get dirty doing clay. That's part of being, have the fun of it. Okay, I'm going to put my bottom down here on my canvas sheet. Dry my hands off just a little bit, and now I'm going to bend the sides up pretty quickly and try to attach the sides as fast as I possibly can because I don't want to stress that slab of clay. Bend into the corner there, bring this side up, and and overlap and attach. And then I'll take the pad of my thumb right over that connection on the top, get that one sealed, turn quickly. Do the same thing on the next corner. And I'm going to attach a little clay across that little gap. Same on this one. Press in, and I'm attaching a little clay across the top of the gap with the pad of my thumb. I'll show you here in just a second once I've got that pad. I'm very carefully hold this up. So you can see I've attached the corner up here with a little bit of clay. So it just secures it. So now I can actually press the corners together without fear of the tops coming apart. It's kind of one of those little secrets that are good to know when you're making little boxes or attachments or overlap seams. So now I can take a couple pieces of MDF and I can square the sides a little bit. Just move this over. Do this so you can see a little bit better. So I'm going to put my MDF up to the edge of this one corner of the box. Do the same on this side. I'm going to press those together. I'll hold these together on the top. Try to make a tight seam down this side, and then I'm going to press the wall of the piece against my MDF. Square that one side up. Turn, repeat that process all the way around. Apply the MDF right up to the corner. Lodge these together quickly. And then press from the inside against the board. And square those up. I'm pressing the boards down onto the table, so got them secured against the table. They're not sliding around anywhere. So I can really square up my little rectangular dish quite easily. Okay, so it's pretty squared up. Put this on a piece of wood on the same board so you can see. It's giving way a little bit. It's still a little wet, but as it dries over the next 30 minutes or so, I can actually just use the boards again one more time as the clay is starting to stiffen up and increase that, that angle here at the bottom so I can get a sharper edge if I want, or it can be soft, it doesn't really matter, it's totally up to you. But while it's wet, it's going to be a little floppy, so you're going to have to be patient. This is one of those projects that just takes a little bit of time. Now, I kept my little tiny bits of clay that I cut from the bevel corner there. These are great for attaching the coils that you're going to need to secure those connections in there. So don't throw those away, don't wad them up. Take that little tiny slice of clay, because they're going to be the same size as the corner that you cut them from. Dab a little water in there with my finger. Attach that coil in there, just let it sit and stick while I get the other coils into the other corners. And this secures the corner joint, basically, from the inside. It just makes it stronger. And I can just use the rounded end of the paintbrush to do that. Press that coil right into the corner, seal it in, and then use, obviously, the paintbrush end to integrate that clay into the corner. Or your finger. Finger works too. So I've got that little box all together now. So now I can turn it into a planner. You can use these for little relish dishes, all kinds of fun little things you can do with the serving dish. I happen to use a little bit of red earthenware on this one just because I knew I was going to make it a planter. So we'll be applying food safe glazes on these, so these will be ready for you to use on your table if you'd like. I bet you all have spare straws hanging around your house. These are great for putting holes to gouge them in the bottoms for drainage. So I'm going to place 2 holes in the bottom of mine. Planter, I'm going to space them kind of across from each other in the base here. 2 little tiny holes in the base there for drainage. Now, with the spare slab of clay over here, I'm going to go ahead and make a little water drain pot from the base of this. And I'm going to make it from the same clay. I want to make it relatively the same amount of time so they all dry together. Shrink together at the same time. The ribs compressing the clay, compacting it down. I'm going to square up my tray one last time here and put it on my slab. And I'll make my water container just slightly larger than my little planter. So I'm just going to draw by eye right outside of the base of this. So I'll just go ahead and cut it. I'm just extending it out about a ½ inch away from the base. I'm going to utilize the cuts here in the clay on the scraps to make the little rim on the water catcher. I'm just using one strip as a template to make the second strip that I need. Now I'm just going to do a 90-degree angle connection right here. And 2 of these are going to need to be a little bit shorter so I can inset the ends. So depending on how you want to attach that, you can trim them down. So I'll grab my serrated rib one more time. I'm just going to very lightly score that little tiny edge with a little bit of water. I'm going to score the bottom of that one strip. Water, my serrated rib, and that's generating slip. It's probably my most favorite tool in the whole studio is these little inexpensive serrated ribs. And there's a lot of things that you can use from your house that are probably very similar, like an old toothbrush. There's old tile grout scrubbing brushes. You know, those all work. They do the same thing. You're just trying to rough up the edge where you make the connections. I'm going to press. I want to see slip and water ooze out of that connection. Press those down. And I'm going to use the bottom side of my paintbrush to solidify that connection in here. So I'm just going to press inside the box where the edge and the top meet. Use my paintbrush in to get rid of some of that slip. Okay, and then I'm going to inset these ends here, so I have to cut one off so I can get them to fit. I'm just going to mark it lightly with my knife. So this one I'm going to have to score on 3 sides, on both parts. So 3 sides on the part that fits into the end, and then inside the drainage box here too. So I have to do a little score in these little tiny areas, and then right across the bottom of the box. And then same with the piece that fits in there. And I'm just doing 90-degree angle joints here. Slide that in. Same, just like on the box, I'm going to capture a little clay across this little tiny join right here. Same here. Smear a little clay across that join. And push this down so I see some clay and water oozing out of that connection. And I'll take the back side of my brush and finish getting that connected in there. And then just use the brush to get rid of some of the water and the slip in there. Do the same on the other side. Trim it. Score and slip inside these tiny areas. And same on the part. Score and slip. And slide it into place. Again, use the end of the paintbrush to make those connections happen. And you should see slip and water oozing out of that little connection inside the drip tray. And then you can use your paintbrush to just tidy it up. I'm just going to use my finger on the outside connections and smooth those together. Okay, and then to double check, let's make sure that the planner fits inside the tray. Look at that, awesome. Now let's take one more little step. It's kind of fun. I just had a little piece of a dowel. Now I'm going to use the dowel around the edges of the planner and the base to flute it. So all I'm going to do is, on a spare piece of clay, I'll practice it first. I'll take the dowel, a little bit of the clay, and you can roll into the clay and make this really nice little pattern, this little ridged edge. And I'm going to do this all the way around my planner and the water catcher for the planner too. So I thought it would be a nice way to just pretty up this kind of boring edge on that. So, you know, when you try to bring your pieces in, try to bring them in a little bit closer to the wet side than the dry side. They'll just transport more easily that way. You run the risk of breaking things when you bring them in and when they're completely bone dry. They're just really brittle at that point. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. I'll put a picture of this up on our Instagram account and on our Facebook account. So thanks everybody. Bye.